Yo guys, what's going on? It's Rak-Su here and I am back. I feel like I haven't been here for a very long time, but we are going to be discussing Misfits number 20, which is just around the corner, most specifically Anthony Taylor versus Darren Till. So, let's get into it. So, it's going down this Saturday, the 20th of January at the Co-op Arena in Manchester, live on the Zone, of course. And the headline was supposed to be Darren Till versus Tommy Fury, but it's not. It's Darren Till versus Anthony Taylor. Now, this is a moment that Mr. Taylor had been waiting for a very, very long time. And Darren Till, an ex-UFC superstar, moving over into the crossover space. You are very welcome. He's got a huge personality. He's also Scouse, and I feel like everybody's banter, right? And whenever someone's taking the mick out of somebody, when they do it with a Scouse accent, it just seems to bang harder.
I taste like candy!
What the fuck have I signed up for with this shit, mate? Honest to God. Get me out of here, man.
Hey, Darren.
So Darren, welcome to the family. Now, some people are going to be saying, how did somebody like Anthony Taylor get himself in a position to take Tommy Fury's role? That seems like it's a big old jump and a big old leap. But I tell you what, low-key there's an argument to say that maybe he deserves it. But that's neither here nor there. For now, let's jump into it. Okay, let's get into the fighter's background. So we'll start off with Darren Till. Who is he? Well, as I said before, he's somebody who used to fight in the UFC, started off with Muay Thai and then transitioned himself into MMA and was really successful campaigning in the middleweight division. He ended up fighting Tyron Woodley for a belt, but unfortunately he ended up losing that fight by, I believe, submission. At one point, he really was a hot prospect, fighting people like Rob Whittaker and Stephen Thompson, but eventually he fell away from the top contender spot, and so it seems like, or recent, he's turned around and said, why not give boxing a try? I mean, it's a martial art, right? It's something that he would have done beforehand, but how he does against somebody who's been dedicating their life to it over a sustained period of time, that is the question that we're yet to see answered. Now, for Darren, I think he's potentially a big name and somebody who can bring eyeballs to the world of Misfits, which is good for him, good for his opponent, good for me, and good for everybody else. So I'm really looking forward to his entrance and seeing how he handles himself. Again, this is another step towards Misfits becoming a crossover boxing space as opposed to influencer boxing, because obviously Darren Till is not an influencer. But yeah, I think he's going to be a good addition. Now, let's get on to Anthony Taylor, the Misfits journeyman turned champion turned headliner and main eventer. So AT had a background of fighting on Bellator. His rise has been phenomenal, where he got his big moment in this world through trolling Jake Paul on Twitter. Yes, Anthony Taylor's big break came from trolling Jake Paul on Twitter so hard that when Jake Paul was... Yes, Anthony Taylor got his big break by trolling Jake Paul on Twitter. He trolled Jake so hard that when he was preparing to fight against Tyron Woodley, they challenged him to come down to Miami and spar against Jake. Anthony Taylor used his own money to fly down to Miami. They did that spar, and when Jake relocated to Puerto Rico for camp, Anthony Taylor went with him because they thought he would be a good person to prepare. And ultimately, seeing as Jake knocked the living bells out of Tyron Woodley, clearly he was a good sparring partner to have. After that, the beef was starting to brew between Tommy Fury and Jake Paul. And Jake said, if you want to fight me, you have to go through Anthony first. Anthony had that fight with Tommy, which put him on the map a little bit. After that, some idiot called Rak-Su decided to fight Anthony Taylor as well on their first fight in Misfits. That allowed Anthony Taylor to get his feet under the table. And then from there, he's been a staple, fighting as often as he can, coming off the back of 2 back-to-back stoppages, and he's been a star killer, beating me, beating King Kenny, beating Salt Pappy. The jury is out as to whether he's good or not for the space, but I tell you one thing, he's here and he's not going anywhere. Now, a question has to be asked. How did this even happen? What happened to Darren Till versus Tommy Fury? Darren being from Liverpool, Tommy being from Manchester, or just down the road anyway, already sold out the AO Arena in the fight versus KSI. This was supposed to be a huge event, an amazing event, and a really good fight. But Tommy ended up pulling out of it and citing some things like he was worried that Darren was going to kick him in the head. I'm sorry, but Darren has fought at the highest levels of mixed martial arts, and there are still rules within that sport. You can't just do anything that you want to. For example, you can't knee somebody in the head when they're on the floor. He understands what rules are. He understands what rule sets are as going from Muay Thai to MMA. So I don't really buy that. None of us know the real reason. He's come out recently. Tommy Fury has come out recently and said that he's been struggling with alcoholism. Tommy Fury said that alcoholism is a big part of why him and Money May actually split up. So I imagine if you were struggling with alcoholism to the point that your missus and the mother of your child no longer want to be with you, your head probably isn't going to be in the right place to do a fight camp and to headline an event of that magnitude. So in reality, I reckon it was more his mental state that had the say in Tommy Fury pulling out of his fight than it was anything to do with the fear of getting kicked in the head. Now, does this fight matter or not? If you are a hardcore influencer boxing fan, you're probably looking at it like, why do I care about this ex-UFC fighter fighting against an ex-Bellator fighter, even though you've seen Anthony Taylor in this world probably beating some of your favourite influencers? And the honest answer to me is, yes, it does. Because I think if this event can be a success with these two headlining it, it really puts Misfits on the map as a massive crossover boxing platform. So it's already a massive influencer boxing platform. It's the biggest influencer boxing platform, right? Unlucky Kingpin. But what is it when it comes to the crossover realm? I would say we're probably Jake Paul's MVP because of the things that he's done versus, say, Mike Tyson with 100 million viewers on Netflix. Probably makes MVP the premier crossover boxing platform, but Misfits is by far and away the biggest influencer boxing platform. But if they can make a fight like this work, then I think it really allows them to start eating into that MVP market share. On the other side of that, KSI is back and KSI is going to be active this year fight-wise. Now, to fight KSI, you have to do a lot from either a boxing perspective, building your way up, and people have to call for that fight, or you have to be a massive name. So, for example, if you're Conor McGregor, if you are Andrew Tate, if you are Amir Khan, if you are Jake Paul, if you're Tommy Fury, you can fight against KSI. But the list of potential opponents for him that people will be happy with isn't that long. There was a rumoured Slim and AT fight, but no one really wanted to see that. If Anthony Taylor can go and stop Darren Till, suddenly everyone's going to be talking about AT like, whoa, this guy's a really good fighter. And then the fight between him and KSI then becomes quite interesting, where it's like the company fighting against the company man. What happens there and who comes out on top? On the flip side, as Jake has been running through UFC fighters and pensioners as well, if Darren Till was to beat Anthony Taylor, it then makes him a super credible opponent for KSI to also fight too. So what's at stake, I think, is the ability for Misfits to not just run the influencer game, but to run the crossover game fully as well. And also to give KSI a potential future opponent. Because, yo, we got to feed the man some people. Do you know what I mean? But it's got to make sense who we're feeding him.
After you get the victory in this fight, what's next? Tommy, KSI?
Yeah, it just depends who they put on the table to me. I'll just fight anyone, obviously, but obviously it's got to be a good name. It's got to be a big name. So, you know, we'll see KSI, potentially, you know, Jake Paul, if it's there. Who knows?
Now, what's at stake for Darren Till? If I keep it a buck with you, the only thing that's at stake for Darren Till, in my personal opinion, is ego. If he goes into this and he wins this fight, brilliant. He's beaten Anthony Taylor, but he's probably supposed to beat Anthony Taylor. He's a bigger man. He's fought at the high level, period. The only difference is that Anthony Taylor's been focused on boxing specifically for the past 3 years, and Darren Till hasn't for so long. I understand that, but we're all probably expecting a Darren Till win. But if he was to lose, I don't think it matters. Because if he loses to Anthony Taylor, it puts him in a place where we're looking at him probably like we look at me, like we look at Salt Pappy, like we look at King Kenny, like we look at Amadeus. I can't remember the name of the guy that Salt Pappy beat. Amadeus Ferrari, that was it. And so ultimately, Darren Till probably has loads and loads of fights he can have. If I go and see Anthony Taylor stop Darren Till, if Mams gives me a call and is like, yo, do you want to fight Darren Till? Massive name, sells loads of tickets, people who care about it, the answer would unequivocally be yes. Hey, Salt Pappy, you fought Amadeus Ferrari. Darren Till just got beaten by Anthony Taylor. Do you want to fight him? The answer is yes, both people are getting paid. So, in all honesty, for Darren Till, from an economical perspective, it's a win-win. From a you just want to fight perspective and you want to get bouts, it's a win-win. The only thing that's really at risk is your ego. For Anthony Taylor, again, it's a win-win. He gets to headline a show. If Anthony Taylor loses this, he turns around and says the guy was way too big. I'm not good enough to be fighting against UFC people. Let me stick to influencers, which really annoy me, but that's what he'll be able to turn around and say. Easy. If he wins it, does he then get catapulted into a realm where he can start calling out other UFC fighters, talking trash in the way that Anthony Taylor does, and he might be able to walk himself into another fight? If I'm being honest, the person with the most to lose here, or the people with the most to lose, are Mams, KSI, everybody else who has a stake in Misfits. Because this has the potential to not particularly do that well and transcend outside of the space. I really hope it does, because they are massively engaging characters, but neither of them has 5 million subscribers on YouTube. Neither of them has just been on one of the biggest TV shows in the country. You get the point that I'm making. It may be a bit harder for this to permeate through popular culture, but I do think it's got a really good chance of doing it. Darren Till versus Anthony Taylor is one hell of an intriguing fight, and what happens off the back of it is going to have a big impact on the world of Misfits going forwards in one way or another. So I, for one, cannot wait to see it. Now, finally, I've got to make a prediction. And my prediction is, I've never seen Darren Till box, but just going on the small bits of sparring footage that I've seen, and obviously what I know of him from the UFC, and the size difference, the natural size difference, they say a good big un beats a good little un. So I'm going to say that Darren Till wins this. I'm going to say that Darren Till wins it by stoppage, just from grinding 80 down. Where 80 is tough as nails, and I can't see him getting like chinned and put to sleep, but I could see maybe a barrage of shots coming in and him consistently taking damage and a referee saying, no, that's enough of that. But either way, I think it's going to be amazing. But my opinion is just my opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments who wins, Anthony Taylor or Darren Till, and do you think it's a good move for Misfits or not? Let me know. Peace. Guys, this part is obvious and goes without saying, but if you want to watch Misfits 20, if you want to watch all of the other X-Series shows, if you want to see Bivol versus Beterbiev, if you want to see Shakur Stevenson fighting, if you want to see Anthony Joshua fighting, then obviously sign up to the Zone, and there is a link right now in the bio that can take you there, so let's do it.